When I found the small silver hotel key buried beneath my daughter's pink plastic blocks, something inside me went still. Not broken, not yet. Just still. The way the air feels right before a summer storm. I remember sitting on the floor of Emily's room, sunlight falling across the faded rug, toys scattered everywhere. She was humming the same tune she always did when she played, a soft, made-up melody about her daddy being far away but bringing her candy. I turned the key over in my hand. The metal felt warm, as if it had been hiding there for days. For a moment, my mind refused to connect the dots. Maybe it was from one of his business trips. He traveled often, after all. But something about it felt wrong. A hotel key, not a key card, like the ones he usually used for corporate stays. This one was old-fashioned, with a brass tag engraved, Room 214, Maple Inn. Maple Inn wasn't the kind of place corporate travelers stayed. It was the kind of place teenagers went to hide from their parents. I tucked the key into my palm, forcing a smile as Emily held up her doll. "Mommy, can we make Daddy a surprise for when he comes home?" Her little voice cut through me. "Of course, sweetheart," I said, smoothing her hair. My voice sounded normal. My heartbeat didn't. Before all this, our life had looked so ordinary it could have been a picture frame sample in a furniture store. Michael, my husband, was the steady one. The man everyone trusted. He worked in logistics, which meant endless phone calls and the occasional week away. I'd gotten used to the suitcase by the door, the quick pecks on the cheek, the smell of his cologne lingering in the hallway after he left. I was the homemaker, the predictable center of our small world. Mornings were a blur of toast crumbs and juice boxes. I ran the PTA bake sales, kept our bills paid, and remembered everyone's birthdays. Michael liked to joke that I was the CEO of the house, and for a long time, I believed it. At night, after Emily was asleep, we'd sit on the porch. He'd talk about his clients, and I'd talk about school gossip or the new recipe I wanted to try. Sometimes he'd take my hand, thumb brushing my wedding ring. "You make all this possible," he'd say. I'd smile and think how lucky I was. It's strange how the smallest things begin to feel different. When the truth starts whispering beneath the surface, he'd been distracted lately, checking his phone more, laughing at messages he didn't explain. Once, he came home smelling faintly of vanilla. Not my perfume, but something sweeter, younger. I'd asked teasingly, "Got a new office air freshener?" He'd laughed too quickly. "Client's Bakery. You'd love their cupcakes." I wanted to believe him, so I did. The night before I found the key, we'd had dinner together. Spaghetti, garlic bread, the usual. He'd been packing for a 2-night trip to Chicago. "Big presentation," he'd said. "Wish me luck." Emily clung to his leg. "Bring me something pink," she'd squealed. He promised he would. When he left, I kissed him on the cheek and told him to drive safe. He smiled that same reassuring smile I'd known for 15 years. After he was gone, the house felt emptier than usual. I remember folding laundry while the TV murmured in the background, the sound of weather updates and commercials. My hands moved automatically, his shirts, his socks, each one an act of quiet trust. The next morning, Emily woke early, restless. She wanted to play treasure hunt. We scattered her toys, hiding small things under cushions and boxes. She giggled as she searched, hair bouncing in soft curls. When she opened the toy chest and pulled out something shiny, she gasped. "A real treasure, Mommy?" It wasn't a coin. It was the hotel key. I told her to keep playing while I sat there, frozen, turning it over again and again. Maple Inn, Room 214. That name, it stirred something faintly familiar. I realized I'd driven past it once, near the highway exit, behind a line of gas stations. A roadside motel with flickering neon letters. My stomach turned. I told myself there had to be a reason. Maybe he stopped there for coffee. Maybe he picked it up by mistake. But then why was it in our daughter's toy box? That night when Michael called, his voice was bright. "Hey love, long day. Just got to Chicago." "Really?" I asked, forcing casualness. "How's the weather there?" cold, he said. You know me? Already missing your cooking. Emily took the phone, chatting about her doll's new dress. I listened carefully. No background noise, no traffic, no city hum, just silence. When he hung up, I sat on the couch staring at the blank TV screen. My mind replayed every conversation, every glance. The vanilla scent, the quick texts, the late nights. By morning, the stillness inside me had hardened into something else. A quiet resolve. I decided to find out the truth. The next day, after dropping Emily at school, I drove toward the highway. My hands shook on the steering wheel. The Maple Inn sign appeared ahead, faded red letters blinking weakly against the gray sky. The parking lot was half empty. I parked near the edge, heart hammering so loudly I thought someone could hear it. Inside, the lobby smelled of stale coffee and disinfectant. A woman behind the counter glanced up. Morning. Can I help you? I held up the key. Yes, I think my husband left this here. Room 214. She squinted, then checked her ledger. Let's see. That room was just vacated yesterday afternoon. Guy checked out early. Michael Turner, I think? My breath caught. He wasn't supposed to be home until tonight. The woman kept talking, unaware. Nice fella. Always tipped well. Usually came with the same lady. Short blonde, friendly type. They liked the corner room. I thanked her, somehow keeping my voice steady. When I stepped back outside, the air hit me like ice. So much for Chicago. I drove home in silence, the radio off. Every mile stretched like an accusation. At home, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the family photo on the wall, the three of us laughing in the park, sunlight on our faces. How long had that picture been a lie? When I heard the garage door later that evening, my heart lurched. He wasn't due home yet, but there he was, walking in with a suitcase and a box of chocolates, smiling. Flight got canceled, he said easily. Miss me? I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time, I saw not my husband, but a stranger wearing his smile. He placed the box of chocolates on the counter as if nothing in the world were wrong. I thought I'd surprise my girls, he said, walking toward me. His arms came around my shoulders, but I couldn't move. His breath brushed my ear, warm, familiar, and yet I felt a chill crawl down my spine. Did you get everything done in Chicago? I asked, keeping my tone light. He hesitated, just for a second. Yeah, long days. You know how it is? I nodded and stepped away, pretending to check the oven. You must be exhausted, he smiled. Dead on my feet. But seeing you two makes it worth it. Emily came running in, squealing, Daddy! Did you bring me something pink? He laughed, pulling out a tiny stuffed flamingo from his suitcase. Of course I did. The moment was picture perfect again, the kind that used to make me feel lucky. But this time, I felt like an outsider watching a play where I already knew the ending. That night, after putting Emily to bed, I sat in the living room pretending to scroll through my phone. Michael was in the shower. I could hear the steady stream of water, the faint hum of him whistling. My eyes drifted to his suitcase. It sat open by the couch, clothes neatly folded. Too neatly. I didn't want to be that wife. The one who snoops. The one who digs for pain she's not ready to face. But the image of that hotel key wouldn't leave me. I reached for the front pocket of the suitcase. My hands trembled as I unzipped it. Inside were receipts, his toothbrush, a small bottle of cologne, and a folded paper tucked at the bottom, a printed invoice. Maple Inn. Room 214. 2 nights. My stomach flipped. The date was from last week, the same time he'd said he was in Cleveland. The receipt listed 2 guests, 1 room, 1 bed. I dropped the paper like it burned me. When he came out of the bathroom, hair damp, towel around his neck, he looked at me and smiled. The kind of smile that used to make me feel safe. Everything okay? He asked. I forced my lips into a smile. Yeah, just tired. He kissed my forehead. Get some sleep, babe. I nodded and watched him walk away. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake beside him, listening to the rhythm of his breathing. Every inhale felt like a lie. Every exhale, a reminder of the life I thought we had. At dawn, when the first light touched the curtains, I slipped quietly out of bed. I took the hotel key from my nightstand, the one I'd hidden there after finding it in Emily's toys, and placed it beside the receipt. Together, they looked like proof of something I wasn't ready to name. I made breakfast like always: eggs, toast, orange juice. Emily sang while she buttered her bread. Michael scrolled through his phone, half listening. "Anything interesting?" I asked. He smiled. "Just work stuff," I wanted to scream. Instead, I poured him more coffee. He left for the office soon after, kissing my cheek before he went. "Dinner at 6? "Sure," I said, my voice calm. "I'll make your favorite." As the door closed, I let the mask fall. My hands shook as I cleaned the table. The coffee smelled bitter, metallic. By noon, I knew I couldn't just sit there waiting for another lie. I needed to see it. That afternoon, I drove back to Maple Inn. My heart pounded the entire way. I wasn't sure what I'd find. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. The same woman was at the front desk, chewing gum and reading a magazine. She glanced up. "Oh, you again. Lose something?" I took a breath. I just wanted to confirm something. "The woman who stayed with him, what did she look like?" She squinted, thoughtful. "You know, I thought she was his wife at first. She even had the same last name on the reservation, Turner. Blonde hair, maybe mid-30s. Real pretty. Always wore that little gold cross necklace." My throat went dry. "Blonde?" I repeated. "Yeah. You know her?" I nodded slowly. Because I did. The description fit Caroline, our neighbor across the street. The one who brought over casseroles when Emily was born. The one whose husband had left 2 years ago. The one who'd started jogging in the mornings, right when Michael began leaving for early meetings. I walked out of that motel with my hands cold and my heart in shards. When Michael came home that night, I watched him set down his briefcase, loosen his tie, kiss Emily on the forehead. He didn't look like a liar. He looked like the man I'd built my life around. "Dinner smells amazing," he said, sniffing the air. "Is that your pot roast?" "Yes," I said softly. "Your favorite." We ate in near silence, the clinking of forks the only sound. Emily chattered about school, about her friend Lucy's birthday party. I forced smiles, nods, small answers. When she ran off to play after dinner, I looked across the table. "Michael," I said quietly. He glanced up. "Yeah? Who's Caroline?" His fork froze midway to his mouth. I watched the color drain from his face, the exact moment when truth collided with performance. He set the fork down slowly. "Why do you ask?" I reached into my pocket and placed the key on the table. Then the receipt. Because she left this in our daughter's toy box. The silence that followed felt endless. The ticking of the kitchen clock sounded deafening. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Finally, he said, "It's not what you think." "Then tell me," I whispered. "Tell me what I think." He rubbed his face. "It was a mistake. A stupid one-time thing." My chest ached. "You booked the same room twice, Michael." His eyes flickered. Guilt, panic, shame. "I didn't mean to hurt you. It just happened." I wanted to cry, scream, throw something, but instead I just sat there, my hands folded, my voice calm. "Does she know about Emily?" I asked. He shook his head. "No, God, no." It didn't mean anything. I looked at him, the man who once promised me forever, and realized that nothing had already taken everything. That night, he slept on the couch. I sat in Emily's room, watching her tiny chest rise and fall as she slept. Her hand curled around the flamingo he'd brought her. I thought about the woman across the street, the one who'd smiled at me in passing that very morning. And for the first time, I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt clarity. The next morning I woke up before the sun. The house was silent, the kind of silence that feels like it's holding its breath. Michael was still asleep on the couch, his arm dangling off the side, phone resting on his chest. For a moment, I just stared at him, the stranger wearing my husband's face. The same man who once whispered vows against my hairline, who held my hand through childbirth, who promised, "It's you and me, always." Now, always looked like a crumpled hotel receipt and a plastic room key. I walked past him quietly, made myself coffee, and sat at the kitchen table. The morning light spilled through the blinds, thin and gray. I wasn't sure what I was more afraid of, losing him, or losing myself trying to keep him. By the time Emily woke up, I'd already made a decision. I got her ready for school like nothing had changed. Braided her hair, packed her lunch, kissed her cheek. When Michael stirred, rubbing his eyes, I said calmly, "We'll talk after I drop her off." He nodded, guilt written all over his face. Okay. The drive to school felt endless. Emily chattered about her art project, her teacher's silly shoes, and the pet turtle in her classroom. Her world was still pure, still safe. And I swore right then that he wasn't going to break it. When I got home, Michael was sitting at the table, same spot as last night, staring at his cold coffee. He looked up as I walked in. "I don't know what to say to you," he started. "Then don't say anything," I said, setting my purse down. "Just listen." He opened his mouth again, but I held up my hand. "You lied to me, Michael. Not once, not by accident. You lied over and over again, to me, to our daughter. You didn't just cheat on a wife. You betrayed a home." He leaned forward, desperate. "I made a mistake. I'll fix it. I'll end things with her." I laughed, a quiet, bitter sound. "You think this is about her?" "No, Michael. It's about you." The man who looked me in the eyes every morning, kissed me goodnight, and still found time to live a second life down the street. He ran his hands through his hair. "Please, don't tell Emily. She doesn't need to. Don't you dare say her name right now." My voice cracked. "You hid your affair in her toy box. You already dragged her into this." He went silent. For days after that, we existed in a strange, tense limbo. He slept in the guest room. I didn't speak unless it was about Emily. And Caroline, well, she acted like nothing was wrong. She still waved from her porch. Still smiled when she saw me. Still watered her flowers like her hands weren't stained with my trust. But every time I looked at her, I felt something grow inside me. Not rage, exactly. Something colder, sharper. Purpose. One afternoon, I saw her jogging again. Same pink top, same headphones. This time, I stepped out onto the porch and waved her down. She pulled her earbuds out, surprised. "Oh, hey, Sarah. How are you?" "Good," I said smoothly. "I was just wondering if you could stop by later. I need a little help planning Michael's birthday dinner. You two seem to get along so well." Her eyes flickered, just slightly. "Oh, sure. Of course. Great," I smiled. "Come around 7. "I'll make coffee," she smiled back, uncertain. "See you then." That evening, I set the table. 2 cups, 1 pot of coffee, a photo album sitting open in the middle. Michael was working late, or so he said. I didn't care anymore. At 7 on the dot, Caroline knocked. I greeted her warmly. "Come in, please." She stepped in, glancing around nervously. "Nice place." "Cozy," I gestured to the table. "Sit, I'll pour." I could tell she was uneasy. Maybe it was the tone in my voice. Calm. Too calm. I handed her a cup and sat across from her. "So," I began softly, "how long have you been sleeping with my husband?" Her face drained of color. She set the cup down slowly. "Sarah, I don't... Please," I said, cutting her off gently. "Don't insult both of us. You stayed at Maple Inn, room 214, twice. The manager remembered your gold necklace." Tears welled in her eyes. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that. He said you two were distant. That your marriage was already..." I leaned forward, voice low and steady. "He lied to you too, Caroline. Just like he lied to me." She looked at me speechless. "I'm not here to fight," I continued. "I just wanted to look you in the eye and let you know. You don't get to destroy something and walk away pretending it didn't happen." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. I could see the guilt creeping in. I stood, walked to the counter and handed her something, a plain brown envelope. "What's this?" She whispered. "A copy of your messages with him," I said. "I printed them. Don't worry, he'll get his own set tomorrow." Her hands trembled. "Sarah, please." "I'm not out to ruin you," I said quietly, "but I won't protect you either. From now on, you both live with what you did." And then, as calmly as I'd invited her in, I said, "Now leave my house." She did, quietly. No words, just shame. The next morning, I left the second envelope on Michael's desk. No note, no shouting, just proof. By the time he came home that night, I'd already packed his things into boxes. He stood there in the doorway, stunned. "You're really doing this?" "Yes," I said simply. "You wanted freedom. Now you have it." He looked at me for a long time, his eyes wet. "I don't deserve you." "You're right," I said. "You don't." And with that, I closed the door behind him. That night, for the first time in months, the house was quiet, peaceful. Emily slept soundly, unaware of the storm that had passed. I stood by her door, watching her sleep, and whispered a silent promise. "You'll never learn love through pain. Not while I'm here." The next few weeks moved like a slow tide, steady, heavy, inevitable. Word spread. Not from me, but from silence. Silence has a way of speaking louder than shouting ever could. Michael didn't come home again. He stayed with a friend for a while, though I suspect it wasn't long before he ended up at Caroline's. I didn't ask. I didn't need to. Our neighbors stopped waving from their porches, some out of pity, some out of curiosity, the women whispered when I walked Emily to the bus stop. I could feel the eyes, the murmurs. I didn't flinch. When you've walked through fire, smoke doesn't scare you anymore. A week later, a letter arrived. Plain white envelope, Michael's handwriting, inside was a short note. "Sarah, I'm sorry. For everything. I'm moving out permanently. Please tell Emily I love her. I'll call when things settle down. Michael." No apology can patch a heart once it's cracked in the middle. It just beats differently. Slower. Wiser. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in the back of the kitchen drawer. Not to forget, but to remember who I used to be. 2 months later, I ran into Caroline at the grocery store. She looked thinner, pale, her cart half empty. Her eyes darted away when she saw me, but I didn't move. "Caroline," I said softly. She froze, turned and nodded, her lips trembling. "Sarah, I'm sorry." I held her gaze, calm as the quiet after a storm. "I know," I said simply. Her eyes widened, maybe at the fact that I wasn't angry. He left," she stammered. "Said he needed time alone. I think he's moving out of town." I gave a faint, tired smile. "He always needed something, didn't he?" She nodded, tears filling her eyes. "I never wanted to hurt you, I just believed him." "I believe you," I said, "but that doesn't change what you did." And then I walked away, not out of cruelty, but because peace sometimes looks like turning your back and walking forward. The house felt bigger after he left. The walls didn't hum with tension anymore. The air was lighter, cleaner. I fixed the broken kitchen drawer, painted the porch railing, and started planting again, marigolds this time. My grandmother used to say marigolds keep the bad energy away. Every day Emily would come home and water them for me. She didn't ask about her father much, only once. "Mom," she said quietly, "why doesn't Daddy live here anymore?" I knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "Sometimes," I said gently, "grown-ups make choices that hurt people they love. But we can still love them, from a distance." She thought about it, then nodded. "Like loving a star," she said. "You can see it, but it's far away." I smiled, my heart both aching and full. Exactly like that. By autumn, I'd started volunteering at the local library. It was something I'd always wanted to do, surrounded by stories, quiet, and a sense of belonging. I met people there who reminded me that life doesn't end at heartbreak. It simply changes shape. One woman, Judith, was widowed for 10 years. She told me, "Loss teaches us how to live lighter. It's the only gift it leaves behind." I wrote that down in my journal that night. Then came the letter from Michael's sister, Linda. It arrived unexpectedly, a soft beige envelope with neat handwriting. Inside was a short message and a photograph. "Sarah, I thought you should know. Michael checked himself into rehab. He said he's been drinking more than he let on, even before. Everything. He asked about Emily, said he's trying to get better. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know he's trying. Love, Linda." I sat there, the letter trembling in my hands. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. Just breathed. Slow. Steady. Because forgiveness, I've learned, isn't about letting someone back in. It's about letting them go without the weight. I wrote a reply that evening. "Linda, I hope he finds peace. We all deserve a second chance, even if it's not with the same people. Tell him Emily is happy. Tell him I wish him well. Sarah." I sealed it, exhaled, and felt something in my chest loosen. Winter came quietly. Snow fell in soft sheets outside our window. Emily and I baked cookies, strung lights, and filled the house with laughter again. One night, as she slept, I sat by the window with a cup of tea and whispered to myself, I thought love ended when he walked away. But maybe it just changed direction. Love, I realized, could live in so many forms. In my daughter's laughter, in my quiet mornings, in the peace of not waiting for someone to come home. Months later, Michael called. It was early spring, the flowers barely blooming, the air still crisp. "Sarah," his voice was softer, tired but sober. "I just wanted to say thank you for not destroying me when you could have." "I didn't need to," I said. "You did that yourself," he chuckled faintly, a sad, honest sound. "You're right," he paused. "Can I talk to Emily?" "Of course," I said. "She'll be glad to hear from you." That was the beginning of something new. Not reconciliation, but coexistence. He called her every week after that. Birthdays, holidays, nothing more. Nothing less. I didn't need him to be a husband anymore. But I hoped for Emily's sake, he'd still try to be a father. A year later, standing on my porch surrounded by blooming marigolds, I looked up at the sunset, warm gold melting into orange, and realized something profound. The same sun that set on my marriage was rising on my peace. When friends asked me later, "How did you forgive him?" I'd smile softly and say, "Forgiveness isn't a door you open for them. It's a window you open for yourself, so the light can get in." Life after betrayal doesn't go back to what it was. It becomes something quieter, but somehow truer. A year had passed since the night everything changed. Emily was 9 now, taller, braver, curious in ways that reminded me of Michael when he was kind. Our days had a rhythm again. Mornings with oatmeal and radio music, evenings reading stories on the couch. Sometimes when she'd laugh, that bright, unfiltered sound. I'd forget there was ever a time I thought our home was broken beyond repair. Then, one afternoon, something unexpected arrived in the mail, a manila envelope. No return address. Inside, a bank statement, joint account. My name and Michael's. The date shocked me. It was opened after he'd already moved out. I stared at the balance line, my breath caught. $8,200 withdrawn. The account closed. My heart pounded, slow but heavy. That was Emily's college fund. The savings we'd built from birthday checks and overtime hours. Every dollar tucked away for her future. He'd promised to leave it untouched. And yet, there it was. Gone. I sat at the kitchen table, fingers trembling over the paper. Anger came first, then hurt, then a strange calm. Because this time, I wasn't the same woman who'd once cried on a cold bathroom floor. This time, I stood up, grabbed my purse, and drove to the bank. The teller was polite, but firm. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Lawson. The withdrawal was authorized by both parties." I blinked. "Both parties?" She turned the screen toward me. There it was, my signature. Or at least something meant to look like it. My stomach sank. He'd forged it. I left the bank in silence, the cool spring air burning against my face. That night, I didn't call him. I didn't shout. Instead, I opened my journal, the one I'd started after he left, and wrote, "This isn't about the money. It's about respect, and the last thread of trust he's now cut." Then I wrote another line underneath it. "I will not lose my peace for someone who already lost his own." But I also knew I couldn't let it slide, not just for me, but for Emily. The next morning, I called a lawyer, a kind, soft-spoken woman named Renee. She listened carefully, then said, "We'll file quietly. No need for drama. Just justice." Something in her voice comforted me, a calm, professional empathy I hadn't heard in a long time. We filed a claim. Forgery, unauthorized withdrawal, financial misconduct during separation. It wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. 2 weeks later, Michael called. His voice was shaking. "Sarah, why'd you involve lawyers?" I didn't raise my voice. "Because you took what wasn't yours." I was desperate, he said. "The rehab bills, rent, You could have asked," I interrupted quietly. He fell silent. "Emily's fund," I continued. "You stole from your daughter." He didn't speak for a long time. Then, barely above a whisper, "I'll pay it back. Every cent." "You don't owe me the money," I said. "You owe her the truth." He started to cry, and I realized then, sometimes punishment doesn't come from a court. It comes from looking in the mirror. A few months passed. He sent small payments each month, $100 here, $200 there, handwritten notes attached, for Emily's dreams. I'm trying, and I believed he was. Trying, at least. One evening that summer, I took Emily to the lake where Michael used to teach her how to skip stones. She crouched near the water, flinging flat pebbles one by one. "Mom?" she said. "Yes, sweetheart." "Do you still love Dad?" I hesitated, then smiled softly. "I love the part of him that gave me you." She looked thoughtful, then said, "I think I'll love him even if he's far away. But I'll love you more because you stayed." The way she said it, gentle, matter of fact, it hit me like sunlight breaking through after a storm. By autumn, I'd published a small collection of short stories through the library writing group, all inspired by women finding strength after loss. People began writing to me, strangers, telling me how my words helped them leave bad marriages, forgive old wounds, or start again at 60. I didn't think of myself as an author. But maybe healing always begins when you stop needing permission to be heard. Then one morning, a thick envelope came from Michael again. Inside were receipts, transfers. He'd paid back every cent, and then some. But at the bottom of the stack was something else. A handwritten note. "I don't expect a second chance. Sarah, I just want Emily to know her father kept one promise, even if it took losing everything else. Thank you for not teaching her to hate me, Em." I sat there for a long time, the paper trembling between my hands. Tears didn't fall. Instead, I whispered, "Maybe this is what redemption looks like. Not grand gestures, but small ones done quietly." Weeks later, Emily and I visited her grandparents, Michael's parents, for the first time in years. They were older, frailer, but kind. His mother hugged me tight, whispering, "You've always been the strong one." I smiled. "No, I just learned the hard way how to bend without breaking." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "He's been writing to us too. He's clean now. Said he wants to start a new life somewhere near the coast." I looked at her, then at Emily, who was helping her grandpa feed the birds outside. "Maybe that's what we all need," I said. A new life, near something calm. That night back home, I opened my window. The cool wind carried the faint scent of marigolds, still blooming even as the season changed. I whispered to myself, maybe forgiveness is like that. Something that keeps blooming, even after everything else fades. It had been 6 months since Michael left, and the air in our house had changed. Not just the silence, though that was part of it, but the way time moved. slow, heavy. Every night, after tucking Emily into bed, I'd find myself in the same spot, the living room chair, facing the old lamp he used to read under. Sometimes I'd reach for the empty mug on the side table, expecting to see his fingerprints. Sometimes I'd forget, just for a heartbeat, that he was gone. And then, just like that, I'd remember. He wasn't coming back, until one morning a letter arrived. It was small. No return address. My name in his handwriting. I didn't open it right away. I just stared at it, my hands trembling like I'd been holding something alive. When I finally tore the envelope open, I read, "Sarah, I know I don't deserve to write to you. But I'm writing anyway. I'm in Ohio, staying with a friend. I haven't been well. Not just physically, but in ways I can't explain. You were right. About everything. About the lies. About the selfishness. I've thought a lot about Emily. About how I became a man she shouldn't look up to. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just needed you to know I still carry the sound of your laughter with me. Always, Michael. I must have read it 100 times. Every word was soaked with guilt, but also something else. Regret that felt human. Real. For the first time in months, I didn't feel hate. I felt tired. Tired of being angry. Tired of replaying the same betrayal. That night, I took Emily to bed early and sat down to write back. Michael, you're right. You don't deserve forgiveness, but Emily deserves peace. If you want to be part of her life again, you will have to earn it, not with words, but with patience. Don't send gifts. Don't call out of guilt, just be consistent. 1 letter a month. That's it. If you can do that, maybe one day I'll let her write back. Sarah. I didn't know if I was opening a door or closing one, but something in me needed to test if people, even broken ones, could change. The next months became quiet again, but not empty. Every few weeks a letter came. Simple things, stories about the weather, memories of Emily's first words, apologies woven into casual sentences. He never mentioned the other woman. He never begged, just wrote. And though I never admitted it out loud, those letters became part of my routine. I'd make tea, open one, and let myself remember who we were before. Emily began to ask questions one evening while brushing her doll's hair. "Mommy, where's Daddy now?" I froze. She said it so softly, like a secret she wasn't sure she was allowed to speak. "He's away for work," I said automatically, but lying felt heavier than the truth now, so I knelt beside her and said, "He made mistakes, sweetheart. Grown-ups sometimes do things that hurt others. But he loves you very much." She blinked, processing it in the way only a 6-year-old could, then nodded. "Can I draw him a picture?" And that night she did. A stick figure family, Mommy, Daddy, and Emily holding hands under a crooked sun. When I mailed it with my next letter, I didn't expect a reply. But 3 weeks later, a package arrived. Inside was a handmade music box, small, wooden, engraved with daisies. When Emily opened it, it played "You Are My Sunshine," the song I used to hum when she was a baby. She twirled in circles, laughing. "Mommy! It's our song!" I didn't know whether to smile or cry. Michael remembered. But life has a cruel way of reminding you that healing isn't a straight line. One night, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was her, the woman from the hotel. "He's sick, Sarah. Really sick. He keeps talking about you and Emily. He won't tell anyone where he is. Please, can you call him?" My throat went dry. All the years of anger, guilt, confusion, suddenly tangled in one unbearable moment. I called. Once. Twice. No answer. Then, finally, his voice, weak, soft. "Sarah?" I couldn't breathe. "Michael, what's happening?" He coughed. "I didn't want you to find out like this. The doctor said it's bad, my liver. I guess it's karma catching up." I pressed my palm against my chest. "I told you, you didn't have to punish yourself for the rest of your life." He laughed, a dry, broken sound. "I think life's doing that for me." Silence. Then he said, "Can you tell Emily I love her?" even if she never forgives me. I didn't trust my voice, so I just whispered, I will. When I hung up, I sat in the dark for hours, listening to the house breathe. The next morning, I packed a small bag, called my sister to stay with Emily, and drove 5 hours to Ohio. I didn't know if I was ready to forgive him, only that I needed to see him before it was too late. When I entered the hospital room, I almost didn't recognize him. The strong, confident man I'd married had withered into someone fragile, eyes sunken, skin pale, but still wearing that same familiar half-smile. "Hi, Sarah," he said softly. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "I wasn't sure either," I whispered. He tried to reach for my hand. His touch was trembling, hesitant, like he was asking permission to exist in my space again. We didn't talk much, just sat. The quiet between us felt like an entire lifetime. Before I left that night, he said something I'll never forget. "You always said love was what you do when things get hard." I didn't understand that until now. I didn't cry then. I waited until I was halfway home, the highway lights blurring through my tears. That was the night forgiveness stopped being a decision and became a kind of surrender. Because sometimes, letting go isn't about forgetting what someone did. It's about remembering who you are and refusing to let bitterness define you. 3 years passed after that hospital visit. Michael and I never spoke again after that day, not because I didn't want to, but because the universe decided to close that chapter for both of us. He passed away 6 months later. Peacefully, they said. He'd written one last letter, mailed just a week before he died. It said, "Sarah, I want you to know that I've been sober for a year. I've been trying to make peace with the wreckage I caused. I don't want Emily to remember me as the man who left, but as the man who finally understood what family meant. You were my home. Even when I walked away from it, tell her I love her, always." Michael, when I read it, I didn't cry. I thought I would, but instead, I felt something unclench inside me, a quiet acceptance, like a long-held breath finally exhaled. I didn't tell Emily right away. She was only 9, too young to carry the weight of a man's redemption. But I kept the letters, all of them, in a small wooden box. Someday I knew she'd need them. Life went on. I went back to teaching part-time. Emily joined the school choir. We found a rhythm again, not the one we lost, but one that still had laughter in it. But the truth has a way of circling back. One evening, when she was 12, she came to me holding that same old music box. "Mommy," she said softly, "did Daddy really make this?" I nodded. "He did." She turned the handle and the familiar tune filled the room. Then she looked at me, serious, thoughtful in a way children rarely are. "Did he stop loving us?" The question cracked something open in me. "No, sweetheart," I whispered. "He just forgot how to show it for a while." She thought about that, then said, "Can I see his letters?" I hesitated, but maybe she was ready. So I brought her the wooden box and sat beside her as she opened it. For an hour, she read in silence. Letter after letter, apologies, memories, sketches of her first birthday. When she finally looked up, her eyes were wet. "He was really sorry, wasn't he?" "Yes," I said quietly. "He was." And then she said something that made my chest ache in the most unexpected way. "Then maybe I can forgive him too." That night, after she went to bed, I walked to the backyard. The air smelled like lilacs. The sky was soft with stars. I thought about Michael, about how love can survive even after it's been shattered, how sometimes the most important forgiveness isn't the one we give, it's the one we allow others to earn. I'd spent years being the woman who was betrayed. But standing there under that quiet sky, I realized something else. I was also the woman who survived, who kept the house warm, the child safe, the heart open, even after it had been broken. And maybe that was the lesson all along. Years slipped by again. Emily grew into a young woman, tall, graceful, thoughtful, with her father's eyes but my stubbornness. When she graduated college, she asked if I could come with her to the cemetery. It was a bright spring morning. The wind carried that faint, sweet smell of grass after rain. She knelt by his headstone, tracing his name with her fingers. "I don't remember much," she said, "but I think he would have been proud of me." I smiled. He would have. He is. Then she did something that made my throat close. She took the music box from her bag and placed it beside the flowers. "You can rest now, Daddy," she whispered. "I forgive you." The breeze picked up, carrying the faint tune of "You Are My Sunshine" through the air. And for a moment, it felt like time folded in on itself, the past and present breathing together. Driving home, Emily fell asleep in the passenger seat. I looked at her, the same small nose she had as a baby, her hair curling against her cheek, and I thought about how strange life was. How something that began in betrayal could still end in peace. Maybe that's what healing really means. Not erasing the pain, but learning to live beside it, until one day it feels less like a wound and more like a scar you've made peace with. When we got home, Emily hugged me tight. "Mom," she said, "thank you for never making me hate him." Tears blurred my vision. "I never wanted you to carry my pain," I said. "Only the love." She smiled, that soft, knowing smile that comes from understanding something too deep for words. And I realized, somewhere along the way, she had become the strongest part of both of us. That night, I sat alone by the window with a cup of tea. Outside, the streetlight flickered, casting long shadows on the walls. For the first time in years, I whispered out loud, "Goodbye, Michael." And in that silence, I could almost hear him say, "Thank you, Sarah." It's been 23 years since that hotel key first fell out of Emily's toy box. Sometimes I wonder if it was fate, a small metallic truth waiting for me to be strong enough to see it. The years that followed were quiet ones. I retired from teaching. Emily became a therapist. She said she wanted to help people find peace after pain, and every time she said it, I heard the echo of our story in her voice. She married a man named Daniel. Kind eyes, steady hands, a gentle laugh. At their wedding, as I watched her dance beneath the soft glow of string lights, I felt the strangest blend of pride and humility. She was joy, forgiveness, and strength, all wrapped in white silk and grace. When the music slowed, she came to me and said, "You know, Mom, if it weren't for you, I might have never believed in love again." I blinked fast, holding back tears. "Oh, honey, it wasn't me. It was you." But deep down, I knew what she meant. I hadn't taught her to forget. I'd taught her that even in the ruins, love still grows if you water it with grace instead of anger. 2 years later, Emily had a daughter of her own. Her name was Grace. The first time I held her, I felt something inside me heal completely. All the pain, all the years of questioning are gone. Replaced by the soft weight of this tiny, breathing proof that love continues. One afternoon, when Grace was about 5, she came running into my kitchen, holding a shiny object in her hand. "Grandma!" "Look what I found in Mommy's old box." I froze. It was the hotel key, the one I'd tucked away in a drawer years ago, thinking I'd thrown it out. She held it up proudly, as children do when they find a treasure. "What's this for?" she asked. For a moment I couldn't breathe. Then I smiled, gently taking it from her small hand. "It's a key, sweetheart," I said softly. "To a place that doesn't exist anymore." She tilted her head, curious. "Did it open something special?" "Yes," I whispered. "It opened a part of my life that taught me everything I needed to know about love and forgiveness." That night, after Grace went to bed, Emily found me sitting by the window, turning the key over in my palm. "You kept it," she said quietly. "I guess I did," I replied. "Maybe as a reminder of how far we've come," she nodded. "Sometimes I wonder, if Dad could see us now, what he'd think." I smiled faintly. He'd probably say he doesn't deserve any of it. But maybe he'd also be grateful we didn't let his mistakes define us. We sat in silence for a while, the good kind of silence. The kind that holds more love than words ever could. Then Emily reached for the key. Maybe it's time to let it go. I hesitated. Then we both stood and walked outside, barefoot in the cool grass, the moon high and full. At the edge of the backyard stood the old oak tree, the one Michael had planted the year Emily was born. Its roots had grown deep, strong, unshakable. Emily dug a small hole near the base. I dropped the key in, the metal glinting once under the moonlight before disappearing beneath the soil. "There," she said softly. "It's finally home." Weeks passed. And somehow, everything began to feel lighter. Every morning, I'd watch Grace play near that oak tree, her laughter carrying through the house like sunlight. And sometimes I'd swear I could hear faint music in the wind, that same tune from the music box, distant but warm. It's funny, isn't it? How life finds a way to turn our deepest pain into gentle memories. How the things that once broke us can, one day, become the reason we stand stronger. Now, at 70, I write this story not as a warning, but as a reminder that betrayal may shatter your world, but it cannot destroy your spirit unless you let it. Forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened. It's about freeing yourself from it. And sometimes the most beautiful endings aren't the ones where love returns, but the ones where peace finally does. When I walk through my house now, the same one that held every version of me, I feel gratitude more than pain. For the laughter, the tears, the music box melodies, the mistakes, and the healing. Because every part of it, even the hotel key, led me here, to this quiet, steady life. To my daughter and my granddaughter, to the realization that even broken hearts can grow gardens if we give them enough light. And maybe, just maybe, that's what Michael meant in his last letter when he wrote, "You were my home, even when I walked away from it." Because love, the real kind, never truly leaves. It just changes form, softens around the edges, and finds its way back through generations that learned to love better than we did. You know, when I first held that hotel key in my hand all those years ago, I thought it was the symbol of my ending, a metal reminder that love could lie, that promises could rust. But standing here now, watching my granddaughter chase butterflies beneath the same tree where I buried that key, I realized something I couldn't see back then. It wasn't the end. It was a beginning, because sometimes God doesn't close a door to punish you. He closes it so you can stop standing in a hallway that was never meant to lead you home. We spend so much of our lives asking why people betray us. But maybe the better question is, what did it teach me about myself? For me, it taught me that I could rebuild, that I could raise a child in truth and love, even after being broken by both. That dignity doesn't come from being loved perfectly. It comes from choosing grace when you have every reason not to. And so, if you've ever found your own hotel key, that symbol of someone's lie, of something that hurt you, I hope you find the courage to bury it too. Not to forget it, but to let it stop defining you, because you deserve peace. And peace doesn't live in the past. It lives in the next breath, the next sunrise, the next act of kindness you give yourself. Would you have done what I did? Would you have forgiven him? Or buried the past and walked away? Tell me in the comments. And if this story found you at the right time, maybe it was meant to. Stay strong, my friend. And remember, even broken hearts can bloom again.